Jihan was a hero who had defeated the Demon King in another world, hailed by all as a legendary figure. But few knew the truth. He had been summoned by a goddess to save her collapsing world. And now, having completed the mission he was tasked with, she was ready to send him back to his original world. The insane part was that during the 20 years he had lived in that other world, time on Earth had completely stood still. Not a single second had passed in his home dimension, meaning he would return to the exact moment he was summoned. However, upon his return, he would lose all his memories of those 20 years. But the goddess was not so cruel as to send him back without a worthy reward. She bestowed upon him a fragment of divine power, offering nothing but cryptic, hard-to-understand terms about it. With almost no real explanation, she finally pushed a bewildered Jihan back to his original world. The next second, remembering nothing of the past 20 years, Jihan woke up thinking it was just another normal day. He picked up his phone and saw a flood of messages from his manager. She was urging him to get to work immediately. It seemed our hero was in big trouble. Jihan skipped breakfast and rushed out the door as if his life depended on it. Unsurprisingly, he was met with the fiery wrath of his manager. She chewed him out relentlessly while Jihan could do nothing but bow his head and take the verbal beating. After the torture session, he had to get back to work, his body drained of all motivation. Jihan's current job clearly wasn't enough to live on, especially as he struggled to pay his overdue rent. Every day, he had to think of ways to take on more part-time work just to survive. Sitting in a corner of the room, Jihan thought to himself, if only I had awakened sooner, maybe things would have been different. Just as he was thinking this, his protagonist's aura flared to life, much to his own surprise. A system window appeared before him. He had unlocked a unique skill, a powerful trait called Master of All Skills. That's right, Jihan had finally awakened. Here's some context about awakenings and the current world. People like Jihan who awaken are called users. It has been 5 years since monstrous entities appeared invading the world through special zones or gates that emerged all over the planet. The entire world began to revolve around the new resources found within them. Meanwhile, users were granted powers to conquer and explore these monster-dominated gates. Even menial jobs within these zones could earn enough money to live comfortably, which is why everyone dreamed of becoming a professional user instead of working a normal job. Of course, this life was full of risks, but the rewards were too tempting for human greed to ignore. However, as is natural, not all users found success. Some awakened with top-tier unique traits from the very beginning, while others were not so lucky and struggled to conquer the gates. At the pinnacle of this food chain was the world's #1 user, Muhammad Khan. He was the first person to reach level 70 and possessed an SS rank unique trait called Dragon Language. One day, Muhammad Khan uploaded a video to his official YouTube channel. The curious title made millions click to watch. In the video, Muhammad demonstrated an insane display of power that no one could look away from. It was a type of magic that was the dream of every mage, a spell called Meteor Shower, a destructive magic capable of wiping out countless lives in the blink of an eye. Everyone watching was ecstatic. No one had ever thought they would witness such a magnificent power even through a screen. The gate that Muhammad obliterated in seconds was an A-rank gate, and it was known that even at level 70, conquering an A-rank gate alone was considered nearly impossible. The meteors destroyed everything in their path, including monsters that could easily level an entire city. The overwhelming power left everyone stunned. But what shocked the audience even more was the end of the video, where Muhammad issued a public challenge to all users worldwide. The SS rank skill he used, Meteor Shower, was so powerful that he promised to award a rare artifact called the Elemental Ring to anyone who could demonstrate a spell more spectacular than his. The Elemental Ring was the only publicly known SS rank artifact to date, an ultimate treasure that everyone coveted. To this day, no one had managed to beat his challenge. In a cafeteria, 2 users were discussing the challenge. They were frustrated because Muhammad had set the bar so high that no one could possibly reach it. The female user was particularly annoyed. "Muhammad's challenge is obviously a trap," she said. "There's no way anyone can do it. Who even has an SS rank trait? And even if someone did, they'd never get the elemental ring unless Muhammad personally acknowledged their power. My guess is he has no real intention of giving the ring to anyone. He's probably just showing off his power." The video of Muhammad's challenge spread like wildfire, becoming a hot topic on every news channel. Many countries and users attempted it, but it was almost impossible. Muhammad's challenge seemed like an unbeatable feat. But everything changed when he appeared. The man who would soon be known to the entire world. The moment Jihan stood on the battlefield, his hand began to move. With a simple snap of his fingers, meteors immediately began to fall from the sky, burning everything in a sea of fire. The meteor shower was so devastating that everything was completely annihilated. After causing such destruction, Jihan simply gave a thumbs up, saying, "Thanks, Muhammad Khan, for showing me such an awesome skill." Of course, everyone watching was utterly astonished. People began to buzz about the mysterious young man and his unbelievable feat. Keyboard warriors from all over the country flooded the comments section, reacting to the humiliating defeat Muhammad had just suffered, while many others wondered about the identity of his challenger. The biggest question on everyone's mind was, who the hell is that guy? And here is a little more information about awakening and unique traits. When users awaken, they typically receive a unique trait. This trait essentially enhances the effects of certain skills and is often seen as a character class in a game. Some of the most famous unique traits known to the world are Dragon Language, a top-tier trait that makes a mage even more powerful than a dragon. Miracle, a trait that grants healing abilities so potent they are rumored to be able to resurrect the dead. Regeneration, a trait that turns someone into an invincible tank with incredible durability, even allowing them to regrow severed limbs. Assault, a trait that transforms a user into a warrior capable of defeating any foe. But surprisingly, there had never been any mention of the trait Master of All Skills, the very one our Jihan had just awakened. Back to Jihan. After scouring the internet, he found almost no information about his trait. However, he did find a few useful tidbits. When evaluating an ability, the first thing people look at is its rank. Generally, the higher the rank, the stronger the effect and the more sub-abilities it has. Ranks range from F to SS. Jihan quickly opened his status window. But when he checked his trait, he discovered it had an unidentifiable X rank, something that had never been mentioned before. Next, he looked at his base stats and was utterly speechless. A high rank trait should come with a perfect set of stats. This felt like a slap in the face, suggesting his skill was useless. Moving on, he checked his sub-traits and saw that he only had 2. The more Jihan looked, the more lost he felt with no clear information about his trait. He had no idea if he was considered strong or weak. The system then displayed a tutorial quest requiring him to copy a skill. Upon activating the skill, he would receive 20 uses. However, there was a catch: the copied skill would automatically disappear when the timer hit 0. That quest menu was surprising, but what was even more shocking was that to copy someone's skill, he had to go to a battlefield and witness them use it in person. With his current low stats, that was nothing short of a suicide mission. Then an idea sparked in Jihan's mind. He remembered Muhammad Khan, the man who had performed the insane meteor shower skill online just a few days ago. Jihan immediately pulled out his phone. As he replayed the broadcast, the system displayed all the detailed information about the skill. When the system asked if he wanted to copy it, Jihan was completely shocked. He couldn't believe he could copy a skill just by watching a video at home. And just like that, Jihan appeared on every news broadcast after winning the public challenge. Elsewhere, upon seeing the face of the person who had completed the challenge displayed everywhere, Muhammad let out a slight smile. His secretary Lee Soo-eun entered at that moment. "I'm not sure giving away the elemental ring like this is a good idea," she said. But Muhammad didn't seem to care much about the ring. "I'm more interested in the fact that a skill I just learned a few weeks ago is now being used by someone else," he stated. Meanwhile, his secretary argued, "There are many skills similar to Meteor Shower. That young man is probably just using a similar one." "But how is that possible?" Muhammad insisted. "It's too much of a coincidence. Not only is his skill SS rank, but it also has the exact same name." The secretary, however, remained unconvinced, finding it too hard to believe. "We haven't confirmed that it's actually SS rank. It could all be a carefully staged performance." But her words didn't sway Muhammad. He was certain the skill was at least SS rank and was accompanied by a unique trait. "Why don't you send him my business card along with the ring?" Muhammad explained. "Don't make him too wary. I'd like to befriend him in the future." At the same time, we see our master of copying replaying the video he himself had posted. The video was going viral, and it was no surprise that Jihan started to get carried away, fantasizing about the bright future ahead. Meanwhile, a little girl stood at the convenience store counter as if to say, "I'm about to starve to death over here, and this guy is still spacing out." Jihan was still blissfully lost in his daydream, thinking, "I'm definitely going to be famous." That was until a deep, heavy voice boomed, "Hey, you idiot! Stop staring at your phone and focus on your job." It was the little girl's angry father. After serving the customers, Jihan slumped into a chair and sighed in disappointment. He thought everything would change, but it seemed he had gotten nothing for completing the challenge. It was probably just a scam. There's no SS rank item. But then again, he thought if the reward was real, it would be enough to live comfortably for the rest of his life. He might even become as strong as Muhammad Khan and be hailed by the public. An impossible dream just a while ago. "It's probably just a fantasy," he mused. Time to get back to reality. Just as Jihan was lost in his thoughts, a sudden notification snapped him back. A message appeared on his phone. It was a direct comment from Muhammad Khan himself under his video. The living legend had promised to deliver the well-deserved reward for winning the challenge. Social media immediately went wild. The big shot had finally spoken and everyone was buzzing. Jihan couldn't believe it either. Had his dream become a reality in an instant? In the next scene, he was sitting stiffly next to the secretary who introduced herself as Lee Soo-yoon, the person sent to deliver the promised gift. She even drove him home in a luxury car as if it were the most normal thing in the world, while Jihan maintained his shocked expression, a mix of, "Is this real?" and "What the hell is happening to my life?" In his room, Jihan stared at the ring. He still wasn't sure if this was a dream or a system error. Then the system displayed the stats of the elemental ring, and they were truly insane. Every single stat was overpowered, exactly what you'd expect from a genuine SS rank item. At that moment, Jihan snapped out of his daze. He sat up, knowing this was no time to be complacent. This ring was his golden opportunity to start training seriously. Looking at his stats, Jihan knew that hunting monsters in the outer fields was the only way to level up from scratch. But there was a problem: he didn't even have money for decent armor. True, the viral video brought in huge revenue, but he couldn't withdraw a single penny without verifying his identity, something he didn't want to do. It was a vicious cycle with no way out. Jihan sat down and started to rack his brain. A moment later, an idea came to him. Instead of rushing headfirst into battle, why not set up a stall at the edge of the gate and offer emergency healing services? After all, being a healer was a lucrative profession. A post was quickly uploaded to the forums. Jihan thought to himself that just by patching up wounds for people coming out of the combat zone, he could earn hundreds of thousands of gold, a perfect way to make money without doing any of the hard work. The next day, Jihan had copied a C-rank healing skill powerful enough to mend broken bones and reattach severed limbs. But after sitting here all day, not a single soul has shown up, he thought. Life wasn't like his dreams. Jihan scrolled through his phone, thinking he should bring something entertaining to kill time next time. Suddenly, drops of blood splattered on the ground opposite him. A man rushed toward him at terrifying speed, carrying a severely injured woman in his arms. Meanwhile, our healer was still lost in his music, thinking the day was a total bust. The man's shadow fell over Jihan, his face cold and splattered with blood, looking as if he was about to devour him. "Holy crap, it's just an emergency service. Does he have to be so intense?" The man growled, ordering him to start healing. His tone was so commanding it left no room for refusal. But Jihan didn't like that way of speaking at all. It reminded him of the arrogant people who used to come into the convenience store acting like the customer is always right. "No way in hell I'm healing a guy like you," Jihan thought to himself. Even though this healing skill wasn't his, it was still C rank. There was no way he would waste it on some rude, nameless guy who didn't know how to speak properly. 200,000. Just as Jihan was about to retort, the man held out a thick wad of cash, 200,000 gold. "This way, sir." In this world, was there anything that couldn't be solved with money? Jihan immediately switched into full customer service mode, his attitude becoming respectfully polite. But his newfound professionalism was immediately replaced by a wave of regret as he saw the woman's severed arm, and a surge of nausea churned in his stomach. The man placed the severed part back in position and ordered him to begin. Jihan forced himself to look at the wound so gruesome it felt like the very air was recoiling. His hands trembled. He wasn't even sure if his C-rank healing skill would be enough, but how would he know if he didn't try? And so, Jihan began to channel the healing light. Fortunately, thanks to the dedicated efforts of a conscientious doctor, everything went smoothly. The girl's arm was reattached. After serving his client, Jihan returned home and collapsed onto his bed, his spirit feeling as though it had just returned from a long, arduous journey. Although he had earned a decent amount of money, he had to use the healing skill 3 times, truly selling his soul to capitalism. Without the elemental ring, it would have been completely impossible. What worried him more was why that party had been so thoroughly decimated. The only conclusion was that the hunting grounds were extremely dangerous and it was best to stay away. On second thought, making money this way is actually pretty great, he mused. I could probably retire now and just chill until the end of the world. Haha. But that goofy expression quickly faded, replaced by seriousness. Jihan vowed that now that he had enough money to live on, it was time to focus on earning products and truly leveling up. Suddenly, a tutorial quest appeared instructing him to upgrade a sub-skill called passive income. Passive income was one of the primary ways to earn products, which were crucial for developing his signature trait, Master of All Skills. Jihan finally understood why sub-skills had ranks he could unlock their full potential. It required 100 products to upgrade the passive income sub-skill. Currently, it gave him 10 products every 24 hours. The funny thing was, if he spent 100 products to upgrade it, he would get 100 products back as a reward for completing the quest. In other words, it was a win-win situation. Furthermore, he would unlock a new sub-skill upon completion. It was obvious that he had to upgrade this skill as soon as possible. After checking his total product count, he realized he needed to wait 3 more days to have enough to complete the quest. During these 3 days, he decided to experiment by copying new skill combinations. Just then, a knock at the door announced the arrival of room service, bringing all the delicious food Jihan had ordered. With the feast before him, he told himself to live in the moment. As he ate, he watched videos of other users with special skills focusing particularly on S-rank skills and above abilities that were now the stuff of legends. Suddenly, Jihan remembered Muhammad Khan, who had appeared like an angel out of nowhere to demonstrate the SS rank skill he had copied. Even so, he needed to find a way to keep his copied skills for longer. Perhaps if I level up my Master of All Skills trait high enough, I can keep these skills permanently without them resetting, he wondered. He decided to organize all the videos into a priority playlist, sorting them by immediate need versus later use. This one definitely has to be added, he thought, adding body enhancement skills and then teleportation, which sounded pretty cool, and so the list grew longer while the food on the table was wiped clean. Oh man, I can't fit anything else in. His stomach was bloated like a balloon about to pop. Jihan felt very satisfied, having secured his future by registering as a healer with the User Association for healing and magic support. With his current skill set, he was sure his value on the user market would skyrocket. Jihan eagerly awaited the day when hot girls would be lining up to fight over him. The next day, as he was sitting outside the hunting grounds, the goddess-like woman he had healed a few days prior came to thank him. She was fully recovered, but it seemed this fool didn't recognize her. Their eyes met in a moment of awkward confusion. When she asked if he really didn't remember her, this buffoon flatly replied, "No," as if they had never met. She then reminded him that her brother had brought her here a few days ago, and that he was the one who had healed her. Only then did Jihan remember she was the damsel in distress with the mangled arm. He had actually thought she was the guy's girlfriend since he had spent a fortune on her, but it turned out she was his sister. Anyway, the girl was happy that Jihan finally remembered her. It made it easier for her to express her gratitude. "If it weren't for you, I'd probably be 6 feet under by now. Do you have a party?" "No," Jihan replied. "Do you have a guild?" And again, Jihan said no. So she invited him to join her party as they were in need of a temporary healer. Jihan was taken aback by the sudden offer, feeling he wasn't physically ready for the battlefield, so he planned to decline. But the way the goddess-like girl flaunted her femininity made this simp unable to resist the temptation, and he immediately agreed. But the moment the words left his mouth, they were both startled by a piercing scream nearby. An injured man was groaning as if he were on the verge of death. His companion was dragging him out of the battlefield in desperate need of immediate healing. Jihan was now at a crossroads: on one side, a once-in-a-lifetime beauty, on the other, a once-in-a-lifetime fortune. The choice wasn't too difficult. Jihan immediately rushed to heal the injured man. His doctor's conscience wouldn't let him abandon him. In a flash, he had fully healed the man and received a hefty sum as a well-deserved reward. But let's not forget his promise to the girl about joining her party. His face turned back to her full of awkwardness. However, since Jihan was now earning enough money, he said sheepishly that he didn't see the need to join her party, especially since his current level was too low to be wandering around the battlefield. The girl tried to persuade him, revealing that her party had an S-rank tank and an S-rank mage for support. She was quite confident they could carry him without any trouble. Meanwhile, Jihan just quietly packed his things and left. It was obvious, wasn't it? He had just seen this girl get horribly injured in a low-level battlefield not long ago, and there was no way he wanted to follow in her footsteps. Of course, he didn't say that out loud. He knew this was a rare opportunity to be recruited by such a beauty. But what could he do? Life forced his hand. Tears and money were all that remained as he ran off. In his mind, there was only one thought: I have to quickly earn enough money and products to become an all-powerful mage. With his massive fortune sitting on a hotel rooftop overlooking the bustling city, Jihan enjoyed his new luxurious life, feeling that the great day of his life had finally arrived. He noticed he had just received 10 products from the passive income effect. He invested all his points into upgrading this skill, spending 100 products to unlock the advanced version, raising passive income from level 1 to level 2. Now he would receive 50 products for free every day without doing anything, truly living like a king. Once that was done, he checked his quest rewards and received another 100 products, along with the ability to inherit the unique trait of any skill he copied. Unique trait, huh? Jihan thought. They probably reflect a player's skill usage tendencies. Normally, players could only use skills after learning them from skill books, but the actual power of the skill depended on the user's innate talent. For example, a normal person with no traits would have a much weaker fireball than someone with a fire-related talent. For that reason, learning many skills was often considered useless. Without the base talent, the skill was just a toy. The only exception was the skill Jihan copied from Muhammad's video, as that was the system's way of showing him the mechanics. But with the new ability he had just received, any skill he copied would also inherit the original user's trait. This meant his copied skills would now be as strong as the original. However, he still didn't understand what the word random in the ability's description meant. Jihan thought he should run some tests to be sure how this ability worked specifically. After some thought, he realized this was a good opportunity to end his life as a self-taught healer. A quest board appeared right before his eyes: hunt monsters with a copied skill. This would help him level up and upgrade to more powerful versions of that skill. The quest required him to defeat at least 20 monsters and would reward a total of 200 products. It feels like someone is watching me and granting my requests, he mused. The timing of the quest was so coincidental that Jihan began to question reality. Anyway, since this was a monster hunting quest, he would need a suitable skill to use. He immediately opened his phone, scrolled to a video demonstrating a fire skill, and wondered if he should copy it for practice. This is it! This is it! Jihan finally chose a video of a hot girl demonstrating Fireball, claiming it was just a coincidence. Upon activating the copy skill, he received the E-rank Fireball skill. It was a fairly simple skill with equally simple usage requirements. Just as the system had described, he also received the Ignite trait as a side effect, allowing the Fireball to have a greater impact. At this point, he really felt like someone was watching him, because everything felt like it was being given to him for free. The next day, our friend entered the sheep pen, the area with the gate to the monster zone. He observed the spatial rift and wondered if this was the boundary between reality and the combat zone. But it should be fine, he thought. Yesterday, Jihan had decided to go all out and buy a full set of equipment to ensure his safety. The decisive moment had arrived. It was time to end his miserable life as a healer. Meanwhile, a mysterious young man was becoming famous on the forums under the nickname the Fire Psycho for single-handedly wiping out low-level monsters. People saw him frantically slaughtering monsters, so it was no surprise that many had contacted him, even inviting the Psycho to join their guilds. Who else could it be but our Jihan? He reminded himself. I already turned down an offer from a super-hot S-rank girl, so what's so strange about rejecting these guys? You people don't know, but that beauty even cried because I rejected her. Wait, were those rumors right? Did I really laugh while hunting monsters? He wondered. Well, in the actual battle, this guy was giggling like a villain, finishing off his enemies. That face was definitely the face of a tyrant. Jihan suddenly remembered and thought that the excitement had made him lose control. Defeating the monsters earned him the necessary products, and also reduced the cost of using the copied skill, which was why he got carried away. I was going to stop because I was running out of mana, but the quest reward reduced the consumption by 10%, so I kept hunting. While scrolling through the community forums, he read a post about a raid on the Obsidian Bear boss zone. In the comments, everyone was shocked to learn that the Fire Psycho had taken down the Obsidian Bear without any equipment and at a low level. Meanwhile, Jihan recalled that he had only managed it by spamming Fireball. Then he remembered something terrifying. He shot up from his chair, a jolt of realization hitting him like a divine revelation. He remembered that he had once received a gift from the strongest player, Muhammad Khan, the man to whom he still owed the ring. None of this would have happened without his current mana pool, all thanks to that ring. Going back a few days, we see what happened during the battle with the Obsidian Bear boss. At that moment, the monster was attacking furiously, forcing the users to rush to the front lines to absorb the damage. They told the mages to stay back for safety and prepare their firepower. But they didn't know that our main character had a plan. Since Jihan had a quest to defeat the boss, with a reward of 500 products, he was determined to get his hands dirty. While the bizarre Obsidian Bear was spreading terror among the group, Jihan lightly tossed a fireball, dealing massive damage. The party leader was immediately shocked by the scene and noticed the fire mage who had just attacked Jihan. All eyes were on him. In front of them, the enraged bear was continuously hit by fireballs with every flick of Jihan's wrist. One throw, two throws. And then the inevitable happened. The bear lay on the ground while the group was bewildered, unsure if the fight was over. Was the boss really that weak? Some wondered, but others thought it couldn't be that simple. And then the horror began. The Obsidian Bear let out a ferocious roar, suddenly leaping up and charging towards the group. It activated an A-rank skill, severely debuffing all of their stats. This was the boss's second phase, Berserk State, triggered even after it had taken a large amount of damage. On the player's side, most were so weakened by the bear's skill that they could barely stand. Many didn't even have the strength to hold their swords. The bear then focused its rage on the leader, who struggled to block its attacks with his sword. The rest of the party was nearly useless, debuffed, and lying on the ground, all except one. Jihan stood as if nothing had happened, his eyes fixed ahead. The system gave him a supplementary quest: copy the boss's skill. For this one time, he was granted a free copy slot to use immediately. Detailed information about the Obsidian Bear's roar appeared before him, and he instantly activated the copy skill. Obsidian Bear's roar. If HP drops below 50% within 60 seconds, it unleashes a powerful roar. Jihan inherited the boss monster's killing skill. However, the skill came with a side effect: it would randomly remove a part of the trait within that skill. As a result, the requirement of having 50% HP or less was removed, allowing him to use the skill at will without needing to be injured or have reduced HP. Holy crap, this is too broken. This skill didn't even cost any mana. Knowing that the skill would disappear at midnight, he seized the opportunity to use it immediately. A stream of light enveloped Jihan's body, and the roar was unleashed right after. Jihan's use of the roar immediately stunned all his teammates, leaving them in a debuffed state. It roared again. The group thought the bear had roared a second time, but little did they know it was Jihan, and he alone was benefiting from all their debuffed stats. With everything that had happened, Jihan slowly approached the bear, unafraid of anything in his path. He raised his hand to the sky with a smirk. A fireball formed at his fingertip, grew larger, blazed brightly, and was then unleashed, venting all his frustration on the bear that had tormented the group. His teammates were stunned as they witnessed one person single-handedly destroy the obsidian bear. After defeating the zone's boss, he leveled up twice and even got to keep the copied skill. But this special event only happened because it was a tutorial quest meant to show him that he could copy skills from bosses. The quest also rewarded him with an additional 700 products. Truly awesome. As soon as the monster was defeated, his party erupted in cheers. All arms pointed in one direction, and the hero of the day had been decided. The scene reminded our hero of a moment that seemed lost from his memory. The system absorbed the obsidian bear's soul, increasing the stats of everyone nearby. Soul absorption was new to Jihan. He had only ever heard of it. It was known that zone bosses were usually at least 10 levels higher than the monsters in the area. This meant that if someone tried to have a high-level player kill a boss for them, the zone would detect it and immediately make the boss's corpse and rewards disappear, the primary goal for users who braved the special zones. Just then, a member discovered an item dropped by the obsidian bear. In his hand was a gauntlet with yet-to-be-identified information. Additionally, the defeated boss's corpse could be sold for a high price due to its rarity. But besides that, Jihan was extremely excited that his strength stat had increased. The best part of participating in a raid was that after completing it and killing the boss, everyone in the group received a permanent stat increase. The battle was as successful as expected, he thought. A few party members approached him saying he was the reason they had won. This time the MVP is the captain, and you. The raid leader added that he thought the group would suffer heavy casualties once the obsidian bear went berserk, but thanks to Jihan's efforts, that didn't happen. Interacting with the status panel, the leader checked the item the boss had just dropped. Although it was valuable, its activation condition required the player's health to be below 30%, meaning you'd have to be on the brink of death for it to be useful. It's good, but the condition is too annoying. Yeah, that's true. If your health is below 30%, you'd be lucky to even be standing. The group gathered, and the leader announced that the dropped item and the boss's corpse would be distributed through the player association. However, a man suddenly offered to buy the items on the spot, willing to pay 90% of their value in cash up front. Could it be them? The members began to whisper about a group that specialized in buying items dropped from field bosses. Their only goal was to collect special items, earning them the nickname Boss Item Hunters. Jihan stood to one side, suspicious, a sense of unease, sending constant signals. What are these guys plotting? Just then a briefcase opened. One of the bodyguards opened it, revealing a large stack of cash, confirming they could pay immediately. Oh my God! The pile of money in front of him made Jihan unable to control the beast awakening within him. He immediately stopped caring about their intentions. The scene shifts to Jihan sitting in a rundown field as usual. What's the point of earning 10 million won? He was truly in despair. The reason was that Jihan had his eye on a special set of armor called the Jar Recta armor. The price was a heart-stopping 63 million. He thought having 10 million in hand meant he could rule the world. After learning there were only 2 sets left in stock, he felt like he was living in poverty, telling the shopkeeper he would be back one day, when in reality he just had expensive taste. Anyway, Jihan's calculating mind was focused on hunting as much as possible. He opened his status window to claim the rewards from the tutorial quest. Fortunately, he could still copy the boss monster's skill from here. However, unlike the tutorial quest, this skill was quite risky as it required his health to be below 50%. But all things said, the fire skill was still the most badass of them all. Just having it was enough to hunt bosses. After psyching himself up, Jihan began to stretch his 20-something body. He decided to invest some of his accumulated points to boost his stats. His current stats were heavily skewed towards a mage, while his other stats were terrible. At this point, there were many choices. For example, if he followed a fantasy path like in the movies, becoming a swordsman would be the most fitting. However, he didn't want to risk his life in a place where danger lurked every day. Noticing a change in his magical power, he spent 500 products to upgrade his copy skill, allowing him 1 extra copy per day. This was incredibly exciting news. The tutorial quest also indicated that daily quests were the only surefire way to earn products. And surprisingly, he received a simple quest, use the copy skill twice for a reward of 80 products. So what if I copy the same skill twice? Thinking this, Jihan immediately opened his phone. After watching a video, he decided to copy the Healing Light skill. After acquiring it, Jihan wondered if the skill's trait would change, or if he would have two identical skills with different effects. So, he decided to try again. A quick tap on the system brought up a warning that this skill had already been copied. Ignoring the warning, he proceeded with the second copy, and was amazed when it succeeded. Hit the jackpot again. The next day, his sign was quickly updated with the latest information announcing that he was now selling a healing service that included a 5% experience boost for just 1 million won. This rare offer immediately attracted the attention of many players gathered around the gate. Taking a deep breath, Jihan shouted to promote his service. Selling a 5% experience buff lasts for 5 hours, limited buff, no effect, no pay. The surrounding crowd was astonished and skeptical. An experience point buff was unheard of. Is this guy planning to take the money and run? They wondered. On the other side, Jihan was just waiting to be showered in cash. Don't hesitate, everyone. Suddenly, a pair of feet stepped out from the crowd. A mage approached and got close to him. She pulled down her hood, revealing the hot S-rank girl from before. So, you're still not interested in hunting with us? She teased, inviting him to join her party. Seeing her beauty again, Jihan was overwhelmed, a light as bright as the sun shining directly in his face. He told her he was currently focused on his business, to which she teased that it looked like he hadn't even gotten his first customer yet. In that case, I'd be happy to be your first customer. My brother and I will buy this. What money solves everything? Jihan treated them like VIPs and invited them in. Activating his new healing light skill, he gave them a 5% boost to their combat experience. Before leaving, she gave him her personal business card with her phone number, saying she would be waiting for his call. My team really needs a good healer, she said, and it seemed this girl had really taken a liking to Jihan. More importantly, she helped validate the practicality of his service in front of everyone, causing a crowd of customers to rush in to try it. Jihan now truly felt rich as money was practically thrown at his face. But sorry, we don't take cards here. Meanwhile, let's go back to the hot girl and her brother. The brother seemed a bit annoyed that his sister was so interested in a guy who didn't even have any gear. Didn't you always tell me to stay away from people like that so I wouldn't get scammed? But the mage reminded her dear brother that their team would be invincible with him. They were both already excellent in their roles. Now they just needed a reliable healer. And with the fact that this guy could provide an experience buff, it was a jackpot if they could get him on their team. But he's still just a newbie, he argued. But she thought that was the best part, as they had recognized Jihan's potential early on. At the same time, the two had entered the zone. The S-rank female mage cast Fireburst, wiping out a group of warrior lizards. She continued their earlier conversation, feeling that someone like Jihan had a very bright future as a warrior. Who knows, maybe he'll become an amazing tank later on. Meanwhile, outside, with the millions earned from his sales, Jihan had finally bought the armor he wanted and looked incredibly cool in it. But isn't passive income even better than this? He thought. He started playing with the system screen and discovered he could easily earn from 50 to 200 products every day at a set time. This meant that even if he did nothing, his products would accumulate daily. He calculated that the cost to upgrade his copy skill to level 2 was 3,000. But to get to level 3, he was shocked to find it would cost 4,000 products. What a shocker. The good news was that daily quests gave a lot of products. So if he earned a steady 200 products a day, he would need about 49 days to reach his goal. Meanwhile, a few people seemed to find him very familiar. Jihan thought another field battle would be a good idea. He put on a hoodie, remembering that he was known as a healer, so now he would play the role of a secret mage and continue using it. The scene shifts to a battle in the field, but unfortunately this was a mudland which got his new suit terribly dirty. The F-rank battlefield named Gorum Bay specialized in neutralizing attacks and users. Jihan wondered if this testing ground was mainly for newly awakened people. The sheep farm from before was much more pleasant, he thought. Of course, with the battlefield's limitations, he was struggling to collect the souls of the weak slimes. Remembering a warning from a community member, he thought, it'll probably be fine. Nothing happened during the Obsidian Bear raid, so what could go wrong now? All he wanted was to go home immediately, but seeing these clowns standing around talking was getting on his last nerve. Are you here to hunt monsters or for a group date? One of the guys in the group came up and asked if he was really a boy, just because he had chosen a weird character name when registering for the raid. Well, I just reversed my name for the nickname. It was only then that he realized because Jihan had taken up a female spot in the group, the other guy was left alone and almost ended up in a BL situation. At the same time, the blonde guy casually told the group to start the strategy meeting. He said this time the strategy was very simple and didn't need much explanation, but he would repeat it once more. The boss of this battlefield was the mud crab, which had a trait of increasing its speed every time it was stunned by a player's debuff. This eliminated the possibility of mages using debuffs, as it would make the fight harder by making the monster stronger. The crab also had some self-inflicted debuffs like injuries or bleeding, meaning the more it was hurt, the faster it became. The goal was to defeat it without causing too many wounds, because after a certain threshold, the boss would trigger a special effect. This made Jihan wary until the knight returned with his usual flirtatious banter, boasting that he had already defeated 8 bosses like this, so this one would be a piece of cake. Jihan assessed the situation and wondered if the ability to increase stats when receiving a debuff was the crab's special skill. This was important information because basically it meant debuffs were equivalent to buffs. But he was also extremely annoyed by the flirtatious atmosphere and wondered if the deadweights in the group would actually be useful. And then, very quickly, everyone found the regional monsters. The battle began as the blonde warrior charged forward, slashing at the creatures. But something was strange. They were acting all cool while killing tiny clams and looking majestic as if they had just achieved a great feat. This group behaved as if they were destroying hordes of monsters when, in reality, they were just small clams that could fit in one's hand. One with a sword, one with an axe, they struck with great decisiveness. The blonde guy was still blabbering on about how he would protect everyone when they faced the boss. But his confidence flew out the window when thorny tentacles suddenly emerged from the ground, causing him to immediately back away. But since the boss in this stage only appeared after a certain number of monsters were killed, they were trying to take down as many creatures as possible. The group quickly formed a formation and rained arrows down on the centipede-like monsters. Jihan hadn't done anything yet, and he was quite satisfied to see that the group was holding up well for now. The players here all had skills stronger than the F rank of the battlefield, so he was hoping the main boss would appear soon. Perhaps he had spoken too soon because a pincer-like mouth of a crab suddenly emerged from the ground and swallowed a monster. The group realized the real raid had just begun as the crab appeared larger than they had imagined. Since this monster boss was limited in its movement, they were instructed to attack only in a straight line, not moving left or right. Meanwhile, Jihan was surprised as he observed the details of the crab's skill. This is truly a unique skill. The status board was right in front of him. It was completely wrong the crab could change direction and adjust its movements. It was herding the group like ducks. Jihan assessed its special skill as a permanent passive that increased its stats every time it received a buff or a debuff. This made him even more excited because it didn't even specify a duration, meaning the skill was continuously active. Meanwhile, the blonde clown, who was supposed to be the main damage dealer, was just sitting back, not even participating in the fight. Based on what he had said earlier, Jihan realized that if they continued with physical attacks, the group would be in trouble because the boss had self-inflicted debuffs like bleeding. He really couldn't understand what their strategy was. Even the crab seemed confused about what these idiots were doing, as all their attacks were clearly useless. Seeing the tense situation, our blonde hero decided it was time to step in. He even had the audacity to ask one of the girls to buff him. But the worst part was, it wasn't even a real buff. It was just an act to boost morale. Jihan thought to himself that if it were him, he would have let the crab kill this whole ridiculous group. But then a bright light appeared at the blonde guy's feet, stunning him. The blonde clown displayed a special power that he had completely unexpected. It turned out the skill was called Aura, an SS rank skill that could apply multiple buffs to a target, and the duration increased with the recipient's personal level. I was blind as a bat. That's an SS rank skill. Jihan recalled a conversation with the shopkeeper who had introduced him to his gear. She had mentioned that many players like to post videos on their own channels, so the company had prepared items to support that. She had gone on a long-winded explanation about the technology which Jihan couldn't grasp. Back in the present, it turned out his glasses were special items that could record battle scenes. This would allow him to access that skill whenever he wanted. If he could combine Aura with the boss's skill, he could create a perfect combo to receive a ton of buffs and increase his stats. He also discovered that the girl with the S-rank buff skill seemed to be unaware of its true value. After being buffed, the blonde guy decided it was time to unleash his own move. But first, he asked Jihan to hit the boss hard. With that invitation, Jihan gently launched a giant fireball, dealing devastating damage to the crab. Sorry, but I'm going to have to steal your protagonist's spotlight. And to add to the spectacle, he unleashed a trump card skill he had saved for this occasion. The burst skill activated as a second part of the fireball's effect. The result of the battle left everyone stunned, a fragrant smell that everyone could smell. The crab was cooked so thoroughly they could have eaten it right there. The blonde guy, however, was heartbroken that Jihan had stolen his moment to shine. Unwilling to accept it, he acted as if the crab was about to unleash a special move and rushed forward to finish it off. But the funny thing was, he was swinging his sword at a dead monster. A series of slashes flew through the air before the astonished eyes of his comrades. After his unexpectedly sweet revenge, he was even proud of himself. There's no doubt about it now, this guy definitely has no brain. At this moment, Jihan noticed an unexpected change. The A-rank transformation resistance skill from the mud crab now belonged to him. Now he just needed to go back and combine the effects of transformation resistance and aura to see what kind of overpowered magic he could create. Jihan clasped his hands and said he wanted to go home, leaving everyone stunned for a full 5 seconds. While everyone was still marveling at his performance, someone said, Thank you, you saved the whole group. Seeing the attention shift to Jihan instead of himself, the blonde guy grew jealous and told the group to focus on dividing the loot, instead of wasting time on thanks. At least I still have her, he thought, finding some comfort in the fact that the girl was still on his side. That was until his heart was crushed into 100 pieces when she also rushed over to praise Jihan. Regarding the loot, the group didn't object to giving the largest share to Jihan as his contribution was obvious. He was now the center of attention. Meanwhile, one of the agents silently observed the situation and confirmed to his superior that the boss didn't drop any items this time, so they would move on to the next location. It was clear he was part of the group that specialized in buying boss items. The girl, however, stood still looking up at the sky. Something about her gave the impression that she was more mysterious than she let on. In the following days, Jihan continued to enter monster zones, completing his daily quests and earning 300 products. His goal was to upgrade his skill to level 3, but this felt just like selling his soul to capitalism all over again. He had also tried combining 2 new skills at the same time. The buff effects were incredible, as if they came from another world, but there was a big problem. When he opened the status window, he realized he didn't have enough copy skill slots to do anything with the effect. To put it simply, because both were buff skills and he couldn't use more than 2 copy skills at once, he had no skills left to use. So this combination was completely useless until he got a 3rd copy slot, which cost a whopping 4,000 products. Jihan lay sprawled in a field like a wriggling worm, hoping for some miracle to grant him a special quest for more points. He didn't have high hopes, but surprisingly the system screen lit up with a special tutorial quest for him. The quest required him to complete the main quest, and the reward was a staggering 4,000 products, exactly the amount needed to upgrade his skill to level 3. Jihan was stunned and wondered what the main quest would be. Suddenly his gaze shifted as the sky began to darken. The same thing was happening outside the dungeon area. The city sky turned dark unexpectedly, followed by the appearance of a giant island. This was a new land called Sky Island Canal, with an F-rank conquest level suitable for levels 1 to 39. And his main quest was to clear this area. As a special zone, it was filled with flying monsters. The system required him to eliminate all the monsters in this special zone because its existence was a threat to Earth. The appearance of Sky Island was reported across the country, causing panic among the public and the members of the Player Association. The association was operating in a state of emergency. All flights at the airport had been suspended, and according to public experience, the most significant effect so far was the lack of sunlight. In terms of the international situation, more and more special zones were appearing around the world. For example, Japan's special zone was also unique. A landmass half the size of the country had appeared right next to Tokyo. But in Japan's case, it wasn't a sky island. So the Koreans thought they were even worse off, having to deal with a lack of sunlight as well. Meanwhile, our Jihan realized that the special zone in Japan was much worse, because it was a B-rank zone and creatures level 70 and above were freely rampaging through Tokyo, causing mass destruction. This meant that just one monster was equivalent to an S-rank warrior. Because the existence of special zones was a serious threat to humanity, and the Earth, the Player Association had officially requested government assistance to raid these dangerous areas as soon as possible. A strategy was being developed to combat Sky Island, and all players participating in the raid would receive extremely attractive rewards for their efforts in clearing the area. Jihan appeared quite calm, realizing that things were getting worse than he had predicted. While waiting, Jihan was still sitting in front of the system trying to find some loophole that could help him earn more products without doing anything. When he analyzed the quest details, he realized that after completing the main quest he would have enough surplus products to upgrade all his skills by another level. This really gave him more motivation to help clear the special zone. The employee finally returned and gave him the item he had requested, an item worth 70 million. He opened the box and used the appraisal skill from the system to evaluate the item's stats. Both the cursed ring and the bracelet were nothing special. They added 100 mana, but in return reduced strength and agility, basically rebalancing the stats. If Jihan used the full set, he would gain about 400 mana, which was extremely useful for him. Even though his other stats were slightly reduced, he still thought that a magic-focused build was the safest path, so it was completely acceptable. Now that I think about it, how much did that armor cost? He wondered. He turned to ask the employee and learned it would cost a cool 400 million. The price was sky high, but Jihan, ever the simp, still tried to act cool and professional, walking out as if he would be back when he had enough money to buy it. The scene shifts to Jihan and other players waiting at the entrance gate. It's revealed that he wasn't satisfied with the glasses he bought, so he spent more money on a body cam and hung it on his chest. I should have just bought this from the start, he thought. As always, checking community reviews is a good idea to prevent risks. So, Jihan accessed the forums and learned a lot from the comments. It turned out the monsters in the area were much stronger than some players had anticipated, causing them to be easily defeated. The situation was so serious that the forum administrators had to post an official warning advising melee warriors not to engage in combat because the zone was filled with flying monsters. Players were also having difficulty breathing enough oxygen. All those comments were just bad news for our protagonist. He began to realize that this might be a D-rank zone, not an F-rank as predicted. Still, he didn't care much, thinking those cowards were probably overreacting as usual. But then he was suddenly pulled into the teleportation gate and transported to the island. The change in terrain was the first thing Jihan noticed. A magnificent white landscape appeared before his eyes. Jihan also noticed that the monsters didn't seem too aggressive, at least that's what he thought, until he heard a loud scream from above. Jihan turned his head to see a giant bird had snatched another player who was crying desperately in fear. "Someone please, save me!" The bro was having a really bad day. The monster then without a word dropped the victim from a height of hundreds of meters, killing him instantly before Jihan's concerned eyes. A flock of griffin-like creatures began to circle him, but little did they know Jihan was just waiting for them to attack. "Come at me, and you'll all turn into grilled birds." But surprisingly, the monsters didn't even pay attention to Jihan. Instead, they targeted a user nearby. They were none other than the brother and the S-rank girl who had invited Jihan to their group. The monsters dove down, attacking their shield, but thanks to the defensive barrier, they were completely safe from the attacks. This allowed the S-rank female mage to cast a firestorm skill from a focal point on the shield, burning all the birds and taking them down on the spot. Jihan was quite impressed, witnessing the incredible damage her skill dealt, as he didn't think the two of them were that strong. Meanwhile, the girl didn't seem very impressed, and was rather disappointed with the experience so far. "It's not as hard as I initially thought," she said. Her brother reminded her not to let her guard down and get injured due to overconfidence like last time. Jihan began to assess the situation. He had already copied the fireball skill and started considering whether he should be greedy enough to copy firestorm as well. All the while, he was oblivious to the harmless-looking slimes creeping up behind him. The girl turned to her brother and shouted that if they had a healer, she wouldn't have been so severely injured last time. And she regretted not being able to recruit Jihan with his super healing abilities. Then a sound nearby made her turn to see the very person she had just mentioned struggling with a cute slime clinging to his leg, refusing to let go. "Oh, have I been discovered?" This scene was utterly embarrassing. The two slowly approached. "Isn't this our adorable healer?" Jihan's face showed clear frustration as he had just lost all his composure in front of his crush. The cute slime was finally captured. Its tears fell while Jihan was rescued from the most difficult boss fight he had ever faced. "Oh my god, do you know how expensive these shoes are, you little slime?" To be honest, Hiji's brother wasn't very impressed with him. He wished his sister would have a more rational reaction and stop fawning over this fool. But life isn't like a dream, brother. Our Hiji flashed a bright smile, proving she was still as smitten with the healer as ever. "Healer Nim, we meet again." Hiji acted as if they were best friends. "It feels like the universe is telling us to party up, don't you think?" This was bad news for Jihan, as he wanted to go solo on this mission and couldn't reveal his true identity to the two who still thought he was just a healer. The girl assured him not to worry. She would carry the team and protect him in this special zone. "What other choice do I have? I have to accept my fate of being protected by a beauty," he thought with a laugh. He nodded in agreement and then asked to go to the bathroom for a moment. He needed to use his copy skill to get his healing skill back, but the funny thing was, he didn't realize there was nothing around to hide behind, so his excuse was completely useless. This was a big problem because if he couldn't watch a video, he couldn't copy the skill. What a predicament. A moment later, the three were attacked by the same type of monster as before, but this time they were much smarter. The birds carried giant rocks to smash the user's shield. It was clear that Jihan stood no chance in this fight with his limited skills. What was more worrying was a herd of rhinos running crazily towards them. Hiji prepared to cast a skill against them. She rushed forward, much to the surprise of the others, and winked as if to say, "Leave this to me." She used Firewall, then continuously activated Fire Rain and Fire Lance. Her combination of offensive skills defeated all the monsters easily without any trouble. At the end of the fight, he was amazed to realize he didn't even have to do anything. While the siblings were arguing because Hiji, a mage, always rushed forward on her own, Jihan, impressed by her performance, asked if all S-rank players had as many skills as she did, secretly wondering what an X-rank player like himself would be like. Hiji confirmed that it was true, but added that these skills were all learned by buying skill books, which meant spending a tremendous amount of money. In short, no money, no power. The group continued on to their next opponent. This time, it was a water beast. While Hiji and her brother were fighting the monster, our Jihan looked pathetic and sad standing behind them, like a useless person. Bored to tears, Jihan decided to activate his version of Fireball. And to their shock, the fireball was enormous, making the two in front turn back with sweat on their faces. Her brother was surprised by the unusual power of the attack. Its normal size is clearly this, but its current size is this. How can a fireball be that big? Even Jihan was surprised by the skill he had just cast. Hiji questioned him because that fireball was even stronger than the one she had used, leaving Jihan at a loss for an explanation. It turned out Jihan had forgotten that he was testing the skill enhancement skill, which increased damage by 20% but consumed more energy. He tried to act calm, saying, "It's just a defensive skill that a healer should learn." "Of course, I totally believe you," Hiji said, sarcastically, not buying it. She asked him directly how much mana he had. Like a professional manipulator, he replied that his mana was just okay, when in reality his 1500 mana was very high for a normal healer. He could use Fireball at least 13 more times, but he didn't want to stand out too much since his role was currently a healer. Anyway, Hiji's brother was now extremely suspicious of the person in front of him. Other players also began to doubt his true abilities after witnessing the scene. So Jihan told himself to be careful and only use his skills when absolutely necessary. The scene shifts to a sobbing little slime. Another group was mercilessly killing the small slimes. "Hey, don't let your guard down, keep an eye on the flying monsters," a dorky-haired guy said. His friend, however, was annoyed that they were wasting time on slimes instead of focusing on the real threat. "Oh yeah, then go fight those big monsters over there." At this moment, the system announced that the number of monsters killed on the island had reached the threshold needed to summon the boss. The notification appeared, and some people even thought it would be an easy fight. "Let's take it down quickly and go back." But they were wrong, because the one they were about to face was a super cool boss. The Lord of the Sky Island has awakened. "Hey, isn't there something over there?" The party members were astonished to see an angelic creature descending from the sky. It looked like a divine entity, but what was even more astounding was yet to come. This being was insanely powerful. He activated the Heavenly Sword skill, summoning one sword for each monster killed on the island. Each sword increased total damage by 1%, and came with many other effects as long as he remained on the island. Basically, this overpowered skill was a wide-area attack raining down swords on the players. On the other side, Hiji's brother struggled to fend off hundreds of swords piercing through his defensive shield. For now, the group of three was safe, while the other players were living in a true hell. It wasn't long before even the users reached their limit. It turned out that even if they blocked the swords, players were still hit with a debuff that reduced all their stats for a full 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Jihan continuously healed him, then turned his attention to the level 59 boss. Almost all of its skills were A rank or higher, and its base stats were also extremely powerful. Very quickly, with a mischievous look on his face that was obvious even without seeing it, Jihan had devised a strategy. "Hey, you two, can you run? Of the 36 stratagems, fleeing is the best." The scene shifts to the comments on the forums where everyone was blaming the boss for being too overpowered. It seemed it had taken down 1,000 players all by itself. Sky Island was now nothing more than a graveyard, and everyone thought there was no hope as long as the boss was there. After some time, the boss reappeared. This time, one of its wings had turned black. A live broadcast from a player who had re-entered was also shown on an online platform, and everyone was surprised. However, only its appearance had changed. Its skills were the same as before. The rain of swords poured down on the players like a storm. Not only that, but players now had to endure a second debuff that drained their energy. Remember those cute little slimes from before? Well, it seems killing them was the right decision. Because as soon as they were hit by the boss's effect, they began to transform. Their cute shells completely disappeared, and in their place, bug-like monsters appeared, slaughtering the weakened players. Watching the battle video again, Jihan felt extremely anxious. It turned out that their escape last time was a wise decision based on the overwhelmingly terrifying skills of this boss. Jihan understood that he had no more time to play around, especially when the debuff from the monster boss started to take effect. Then the ringing of his phone startled him. It was Hiji on the other end. She greeted the healer and asked if he had tried to attack Sky Island a second time after they had left. Of course he hadn't, as he was still unprepared. However, they couldn't waste any more time, because Sky Island, just like the special zone in Japan, was starting to have monsters pouring down into the capital Seoul, affecting the citizens. This was a time-limited battle. At this point, Hiji also revealed that they had formed a large raid team to deal with the monster boss, and she was curious if Jihan was planning to join. And so a few days passed. The raid team gathered at a large park in the middle of the capital, a place Jihan used to frequent to sell his skills. Some of the players looked extremely dejected. Obviously, they were the ones who had entered Sky Island and failed. Then some people started whispering among themselves. They wondered why all the players were B rank and above, yet they were gathered in a D rank area. Seeing famous hunters joining his team, Jihan felt like a nobody among a group of elites. Should I even be in a place like this? Moreover, this time he wasn't wearing his familiar cloak, so he really didn't know if anyone would recognize him. Just then, Hiji approached, waving at him, bringing a breath of fresh air amidst the tension Jihan was facing in a sea of strangers. Finally, a familiar face. He wondered, admitting to himself that he was just a lowly F-rank player, why he was in the same group as all these elite B-rankers. In response, Hiji reminded him that although he was F-rank, His healing abilities far surpassed that level. She reassured him that since this mission had no member limit, he shouldn't worry. "But where's the leader?" a voice asked, and we see a pair of imposing footsteps enter. The leader of the raid team finally appeared, approaching the group. Even Hiji seemed excited to see this person. Meanwhile, Jihan was stunned to witness the high-level warrior from the #1 guild in Korea. He was Lee Hee-sung, a warrior by profession. The leader began by proposing an individual assessment of each member's abilities before discussing the boss fighting plan. This meant they would start with a light training session. Hiji was extremely excited, shouting that she could finally get revenge for their last encounter. Jihan was completely shocked. The leader's command was curt, but went straight to the point and no one dared to object. Following the man's back, "He's so cool." The scene shifts to a field battle against approaching monsters. Hee-sung casually cut down a group of lizard warriors, impressing Jihan even more with his talent. The more he watched, the more infatuated he became with this man. But he quickly snapped out of it, remembering that his own stats were so low that if he tried to imitate Hee-sung, he would only die an early death. The only reason Jihan had survived this long was thanks to the elemental ring's stat boost. He knew that sticking to magic would be the best course of action. However, despite his lack of experience with a sword, there was something in Hee-sung's swings that felt both strange and familiar. Regardless, Jihan told himself to put aside the idea of close combat until his stats were strong enough. For now, he focused on healing his injured teammates. Not only that, but close quarters combat was extremely dangerous at the moment. But in Jihan's mind, a voice echoed, asking, "Is that really so?" Seeing Hee-sung wield his sword so skillfully, the old Jihan spoke up, reminding him, "Don't waste such precious skills just to hit your target. With a skill like that, keeping it a secret is a real waste." Shaken and silent, Jihan watched as Hee-sung unleashed an SS rank skill that allowed him to absorb the stats of the nearest monster he had just killed, an overpowered skill that instantly boosted his physical abilities. This buff would disappear after 5 minutes, but if he killed 10 monsters in a row, he would continuously gain stats, the very thing Jihan had been looking for. For so long, Jihan had been searching for a skill that could enhance his physical stats, and now he had found a treasure in that glorious warrior Hee-sung. He stood amidst the corpses of the monsters he had just slain. As soon as the minions were defeated, the area's boss appeared in the form of a poisonous lizard named Kinga. The boss's appearance alerted the players, but honestly it was nothing to Hee-sung, who immediately used his special skill Limit Break, which increased his attack power by 1 tier for 60 seconds. In his enraged state, Hee-sung defeated the boss with a single slash before it could even land its first blow. The boss was instantly defeated, and its soul was absorbed, increasing the stats of every player. And just like that, the raid ended smoothly without any trouble. Hiji was a little jealous that she didn't get to show off. Meanwhile, her brother thought she was ungrateful for not appreciating the incredible carry. Jihan was quite surprised that even those who contributed nothing still received rewards. But Hiji told him that it wasn't actually the case. Thanks to his constant buffing and debuffing, his contribution points were automatically calculated by the system. All this time, he had been wondering why support players leveled up so quickly, and now he understood. After the warm-up, Hee-sung turned to everyone and said he would briefly explain the plan and divide the groups before distributing the rewards. While the other person was rambling on, explaining everything, whatever Jihan heard went in one ear and out the other. He was completely distracted, his mind absorbed by a skill called Catalyst. He had obtained this skill after defeating the last boss. It was a B-rank skill that consumed 800 mana, but in return would inflict a fatal poison on the opponent. Jihan wondered if he could make good use of it, and then, with a foolish look, he realized he didn't need to care. What he was really interested in were 2 new skills, both ranked above S and extremely powerful in boosting physical stats. Obviously, they were the skills of the leader Hee-sung that Jihan had just learned by watching. While the group leader turned to look at the healers and asked, "What's with that face?" With that silly expression, Jihan no longer cared about anything else. He just wanted to go home immediately to test his new skills. A few more days passed and the raid team had not yet advanced to Sky Island. Jihan felt completely exhausted and opened his status window. He had finally accumulated 4,000 points. With this amount, he could defeat the boss without too much difficulty. The funniest part was how he had obtained that many points. He had to defeat a total of 120 monsters every day in daily raids to reach this level. The quests appeared so continuously that he barely had any time to rest. Still, he was happy that at least he still had quests to do. Even though he was dead tired afterward, Jihan jumped up in excitement, causing the system to upgrade his copy skill to level 3. After spending the final 4,000 points, this skill was finally upgraded, the thing that had made Jihan sell his soul to capitalism for the past few days. In his original plan, he intended to combine 2 skills obtained from the crab raid to increase his physical stats, but with Hee-sung's appearance, he now had much more powerful skills in his hands, making him crave a 4th copy skill slot to make the most of what he had. Combining Blood Frenzy Aura and Transformation Resistance with an attack skill would be truly overpowered. Just imagine 3 powerful buff effects combined in one attack. That's what Jihan was aiming for, and he thought that with that combination he could surpass even people like Hisung. Although having 4 skill slots would be better, what other choice was there but to be temporarily satisfied with the 3 he currently had? And so he continued to copy Fireball Aura and finally Transformation Resistance in preparation for the upcoming raid. In the next scene, Jihan faces a wolf-like monster, quite certain of its high level, but with a sinister smile on his face, he knew the damn beast was about to be burned to ashes by his new buffs. His massacre in the field caught the attention and sparked discussions on the forums. He became famous under the title, The Psycho Who Kills with Just a Fireball. A video recorded Jihan's battle with a party. Jihan skillfully lured a regional boss away from the main group, and just as the giant snake was about to bite him, he unleashed a massive fireball dealing an insane amount of damage in a single shot. His mysterious identity was now a hot topic on the forums. Not to mention his movement speed was so impressive that many began to doubt if he was really a mage. Focusing on the snake as it attacked the others, Jihan saved many by launching fireballs, then had to flee again as the snake chased him. The scenario repeated itself. Just one fireball was enough to destroy anything in his path. The other players were stunned by how the psycho chipped away at the boss's health with small, continuous attacks. In the next scene, we follow the world's #1 player, Muhammad Khan, who currently had about an hour and a half of free time. Muhammad felt satisfied watching and rewatching the video of the mysterious player single-handedly taking down the mountain snake, which had been going viral online for the past few days. His assistant asked if he was worried about the notorious psycho. Muhammad nodded, very certain that the person was in fact Jihan. Because I was the one who gave him the elemental ring not long ago. But more importantly, the ring had no effect on physical strength. This meant Jihan's recent feats were definitely from other skills. Watching him fight Muhammad felt like he was seeing a seasoned professional warrior on the battlefield. At this moment, Muhammad asked his assistant about the Sunrider Guild. He requested information about this guild. His assistant explained that there had recently been many reports of their appearance, and they were starting to show up near special battlefields. Hearing this, Muhammad tasked her with keeping a close eye on both Jihan and the Sunrider Guild, as it was clear the world would be paying more and more attention to him. As he spoke, Muhammad walked into his house. Speaking of the Sunrider Guild, their leader was also watching the video of Jihan taking down the mountain snake under the name The Psycho. This proved they were also closely monitoring all his activities, and it seemed they had no good intentions for this psycho. Jihan checked the latest updates on social media and immediately boiled with rage when he saw a certain video. His jaw clenched, teeth grinding. Clearly he was extremely angry because he was the one who had done all the hard work. Yet the person who posted the video was the one sitting back and reaping the revenue. What made him even madder was that there wasn't a single frame in the video that showed his face. How are the pretty girls supposed to find me now? Just then, an idea struck him like lightning. Why not post the video myself? Without wasting any time, he pulled out his phone and planned the recording with a clear strategy. This time, he would make money from his own channel. The video title would be Level 10 Mage Solos the Mountain Serpent Battlefield Boss. Jihan began to daydream about how the video from this raid could go viral, bringing in tons of views. He imagined getting rich overnight from ad revenue, picturing himself receiving a YouTube Gold Play button with just a single video. But he was quickly pulled back to the cold reality before him. Now he was wondering how he could gather materials in the pitch-black night when he couldn't even see the path. Daily Quest, B Rank. Collect 10 essences in the special zone, defeat 20 monsters, and survive in the area for over 60 minutes. Until now, Jihan had only ever received E or F rank quests, so seeing such a high-rank quest came as a complete surprise, and made him regret coming here at night. Especially after wasting the whole day sleeping like a lazy worm just because he had caught a silly snake the day before. Jihan began to consider completing the quest before his skills reset at midnight, not wanting to miss the opportunity. While still thinking, he discovered a blue crystal orb on the ground and immediately picked it up without hesitation. It turned out to be the very crystal the quest required him to collect in the special zone. This meant he only needed 9 more. At first he thought he would have to defeat monsters to get these items as drops, but it turned out the quest wanted him to scour every nook and cranny of the area. This quest is really more annoying than I thought. If it weren't a B-rank quest, I probably would have given up on it a long time ago. Especially when thinking about running around just to collect these glowing orbs. Just then, a surprise ambush from an eagle from behind startled him. Jihan quickly turned around, but it was perhaps too late. The giant bird almost tore him to shreds. However, somehow he managed to dodge it in the nick of time and save his own life. Wait, something's not right here. A nerve in Jihan's head started firing and he thought to himself, I really shouldn't have been able to do that. That's when he realized it was probably the result of using both aura and his transformation resistance skill at the same time. Well, I'll think about that later. For now, let's focus on gathering the materials. Without wasting time, he launched a fireball, incinerating the eagle in an instant. The explosion from his attack attracted the attention of some nearby raiders who began to wonder who would be hunting monsters in the middle of the night like this. Their leader seemed to be fired up, clearly wanting to take down the angel boss Hanoel before Hisung could steal the spotlight. The advance team said they spotted it in the northwest right. When a subordinate asked what to do if other users interfered with the raid, he coldly ordered them to eliminate anyone who appeared without hesitation and ensure no one left alive. This face would be wasted if he weren't a villain. Back to Jihan, he had completed the monster hunting part of the quest. Moreover, he had collected 9 out of the 10 required crystals, showing that he could definitely complete the quest before midnight. Just then, a loud noise echoed from behind, and when he turned to check, Jihan found it was none other than the giant angel monster Hanoel hovering in the sky. The sight made him anxious because his guild's raid was scheduled for the next day. If things continued like this, the boss might be stolen before they even arrived. The masked raiders continued to attack Hanoel, making him even more worried as things started to get out of control. At this rate, it won't be long before it can't hold on anymore. Just then, as usual, a new quest was activated for him, requiring him to conquer the F-rank special zone. At the same time, another B-rank subquest appeared, requiring him to defeat the boss that had invaded Earth and destroy this entire special zone. Jihan pondered the content of the 2 quests while trying to understand exactly what conquer meant here. Since there were no details explaining the extent of what needed to be done, he wondered if the quest required him to personally defeat the monster. Oh well. He decided not to think too much and just sit back and watch the chaos from a safe distance. Just then, one of Hanoel's wings was damaged. The masked group also succeeded in bringing it down to the ground and immediately shouted that this was their chance to finish the beast and claim the reward. The whole group swarmed like ants on a sugar cube, determined to take it down immediately. Meanwhile, Jihan sat comfortably on the grass with a relaxed expression, enjoying the scene as if he were watching a late-night movie at the theater. A notification appeared. If Hanoel's health dropped below 50% and it could no longer fly, the conviction effect would be added to its attacks. Not only that, but this moment also marked the beginning of Phase 3 of the boss fight. As Hanoel began to power up with a massive enhancement, a strong wind blew, forcing him to shield his eyes from the flying dust. And coincidentally, as if by divine arrangement, Jihan's eyes fell on the last crystal he was looking for. He jumped up to pick it up, still humming a tune, thinking how easy it was to find. On the other side, the battle was still raging fiercely. Just as Jihan picked up the crystal, an explosion occurred simultaneously. The masked men were blown away, landing near his position, while Jihan still had no idea what was happening. Damn, that hurts. The fallen men quickly got up, cursing nonstop. They told each other they had to find the ones who were blown away and regroup quickly. Jihan, after being hit in the butt by one of the flying men, was also lying unconscious nearby. The men approached, asking a few perfunctory questions, assuming he was one of them, and urged him to get up quickly. Hey, form up quick. Don't you know if the mage is gone, the formation is screwed? Jihan got up with a mask in his hand, something he didn't even know how he got. Wondering who these suspicious people were, he decided to temporarily follow them and figure things out later. At this point, I'll just take it one step at a time. And just like that, the group of 3 immediately set off back to the boss. Anyway, thanks for the mask, buddy. The system announced the quest was complete. A random item had been stored in his temporary inventory. The buff effect of the B-rank quest had been activated.